I came home after weeks in the hospital and found my belongings thrown into the garage like trash. My son-in-law, wearing a smug smile, declared, "You do not live in this house anymore. My father needs the room." I looked him straight in the eyes and replied coldly, "Then I will kick another useless person out of my house."
The time for revenge has come.
The time to show them who is really in charge. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel. Hayes Revenge Stories and write in the comments what time it is where you are. I arrived home at 4:17 on a Wednesday afternoon with lower back pain after 3 weeks in hospital chairs and my sister's uncomfortable guest bed. The March sky was gray over Portland, threatening rain, but it finally held off. On the way home, I stopped at that toy store in Olympia, the one with the wooden trains in the window. My grandkids would love them. Zoe was learning her colors, and little Liam was fascinated by anything with wheels. The gift bags were in the passenger seat next to an envelope with $3,000 in cash. I had withdrawn it before going to Seattle. It was money I had been saving to fix Lauren's roof. The shingles were badly curled on the south side. She mentioned it last fall, worried about leaks. That is what parents do.
We fix things. We provide.
I picked up the bags, carefully tucked the envelope into my jacket pocket, and pulled my duffel bag from the trunk. My knees protested as I straightened up. 64 years means your body keeps score of every decision you have ever made. 3 weeks sleeping in that chair next to my sister's hospital bed had added interest to the debt.
The front door was unlocked.
I pushed it open with my shoulder and called out, "I am home." "Where is everybody?" Silence was the only answer. It was not the peace and quiet of an empty house, but something denser, expectant. I left the gift bags on the hall table and saw Lauren's keys in the bowl, Nathan's jacket hanging on the hook.
Someone was home.
I walked down the hall toward the bedrooms, intending to drop my bag in mine and maybe lie down for 20 minutes before dinner. The master bedroom door was closed, unusual. I heard voices inside, low, conversational, pleasant. Instead of knocking, I headed for the garage. I would leave the bag there first, come back for the gifts, and give them a moment to finish their conversation. I opened the garage door and reached for the light switch. Cardboard boxes, dozens of them stacked against the walls, formed narrow aisles in what had been my workshop. I stepped in hand still on the switch and read the nearest label written in Lauren's handwriting. Robert Clothes, the box next to it, Robert, Books.
Another one, Robert, Personal Items.
My frame photographs, the ones that had been on my dresser for 30 years. Lauren's kindergarten picture, my wedding photo, my parents' anniversary portrait, piled carelessly in an open box wrapped in bubble wrap. I picked up Lauren's kindergarten photo. The glass was broken, a diagonal crack, slicing through her gap to smile. I do not remember dropping my duffel bag. I do not remember how long I stood there looking at my life, packed away like merchandise in a storage unit. "You are back," Nathan said behind me.
I turned around.
He stood in the doorway between the garage and the house, arms crossed over his chest, blocking the entrance.
No smile, no greeting.
He offered no explanation like any normal person would when caught doing something extraordinary.
"What is this?"
My voice sounded steadier than I felt.
"Lauren, what is going on?"
She appeared behind Nathan's shoulder. She avoided looking me in the eye. Her fingers found her wedding ring.
She twisted it. I watched her twist it again. "Dad, we need to talk." "I will handle it." Nathan interrupted her and stepped into the garage. He moved like he owned the place, as if everything belonged to him. I set the broken picture frame down very carefully. "Handle what?"
"These are my things."
"This is my house. Was it yours?"
Nathan's tone was the same one he used with his children when they misbehaved. Patient, correcting things change. "Ma, my father needed a place and that room has the best space." The words took a moment to sink in. I spent 3 weeks taking care of my sister.
"You packed up my life."
"You were not using it," Nathan said with a shrug, a small gesture that conveyed enormous indifference.
The room was empty.
We made a practical decision. I turned to Lauren, who was still half hidden behind her husband. "Lauren, tell me you did not agree to this. Nathan handles the house decisions now." She barely whispered it.
"That is right."
Nathan's smile did not reach his eyes. New rules for a new situation.
A noise at the door.
An older man stepped out of the hallway behind Lauren, tall, gray-haired, wearing a robe.
"My robe."
He surveyed the garage, saw me standing among the boxes, and gave a faint smile. Satisfied, he turned and went back down the hall. I heard the master bedroom door close. Nathan's father, Mark. I had met him twice before, both briefly. He had seemed arrogant, the kind of man who treated waiters poorly and interrupted conversations.
Your father is in my room. He needs comfort. He is 65 and has back problems. That room has the best mattress, the private bath. It makes sense. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and offered it to Lauren. My hand did not shake. I brought money for the roof. I had saved $3,000. Nathan took it before Lauren could move. He did not even open it. He did not say thank you. He simply tucked it into his back pocket as if I had given him loose change. Good. We will need it. The garage has electricity. You will be quite comfortable out here. He walked away. Lauren followed him. Neither looked back. The door closed. I stood there surrounded by boxes of all my belongings. In the garage of the house I had finished paying for 15 years ago. From inside, I heard the TV turn on in the master bedroom. Laughter. Mark's voice loud and pleased with himself. I picked up the gift bags from where I had left them by the door and placed them carefully on a box marked Robert's shoes. I reopened the box with Lauren's photo, lifted the broken frame, and ran my thumb over the fractured glass. I did not remember it being damaged before packing. Someone had been careless. More laughter came from the bedroom. My bedroom, my TV, my house. I stood in front of the TV and walked to the door leading inside. My jaw ached from clenching it so hard. I needed answers. I needed to understand exactly what had happened. While I was sitting by my dying sister's hospital bed, holding her hand through the worst nights, making sure she did not wake up alone and scared. The confrontation lasted 3 minutes. I found them in the living room. Nathan was lying on the sofa. Lauren was curled up in the armchair, while Mark held the remote control like a scepter. I demanded an explanation. Nathan gave me one. The decision is final. I asked Lauren to look at me to talk to me to remember who I was. She studied the rug. Mark chuckled. I went back to the garage. The boxes had multiplied in my absence. Or maybe I saw them differently now, understood what they represented. I pulled out boxes until I found my old sleeping bag, the blue one I used for camping with Lauren when she was little. We had gone to Crater Lake, watched meteor showers, told stories until she fell asleep resting on my shoulder. I cleared a space on the concrete floor, moved the paint cans and gardening tools and rolled out the sleeping bag. The garage heater was in a corner. I turned it on, heard a click and a hum, and felt a faint stream of warm air. Better than nothing. Through the wall separating the garage from the house, I heard the television voices from some comedy show and then laughter. Mark's laugh was unmistakable, a braying sound that could be heard at full volume. The master bedroom shared a wall with the garage. Every sound leaked through the drywall, the footsteps, the TV, the creak of bed springs. As Mark settled into what had been my bed, I lay on the sleeping bag, still in my travel clothes. The concrete was hard beneath my shoulders. The cold seeped through the fabric. I stared at the ceiling, the exposed beams and the bulb cord, and listened to my family living comfortably in my house without me. Hours passed. The house fell silent around midnight. I did not sleep. Instead, I thought about numbers. The mortgage I had paid for 30 years paid off 15 years ago. Property taxes, insurance, premiums. The new furnace 2 winters ago. The roof that needed repair. Every payment, every expense, every cent invested in keeping the structure standing, my money, my labor, my name on every document. I sat up, found the box labeled important documents, and opened it under the dim overhead light. There it was, the deed to the house, the certificate of ownership showing Robert Hayes as the sole owner, purchased in 1995. The mortgage satisfaction letter from the bank dated 2018. Utility bills all in my name. I spread them out on an overturned box and examined them like a lawyer reviewing evidence. Lauren's name appeared nowhere. I had planned to add her eventually. I thought about it every year around tax time, but I hesitated. Nathan had always seemed a bit irresponsible with money. I wanted Lauren to be secure and independent. Maybe subconsciously I already knew. I looked at the documents, then at the wall separating me from the master bedroom. Laughter was heard again. It was late-night TV, some talk show. Mark found something hilarious. The eastern window above my workbench began to glow with a grayish light. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I had spent the night awake, running through scenarios, doing calculations, trying to understand exactly what my legal and moral situation was. I stood up protesting and walked to the door to the house, opening it silently. The kitchen was dark, but I saw a light in the hall. I moved carefully, hoping to find Lauren alone to talk to her before Nathan woke up and stood between us again. I stopped at the kitchen door. Mark was sitting at the head of the dining table, my spot, the chair I had occupied at every meal since moving into this house. Now he wore a different robe.
This one was new, expensive looking. Lauren had her back to me by the stove making breakfast. The aroma of coffee filled the air.
More coffee, honey.
Mark offered the cup without looking at her. Lauren filled it immediately, put down the pot, and went back to the stove. I must have made a noise.
Mark turned his head.
He saw me standing there and watched me with amusement. Well, look who decided to join us.
Sleep well.
I ignored him, kept looking at Lauren's back. I need to speak with my daughter.
She is busy.
It is family breakfast time.
Can we talk?
Alone, Lauren's shoulders tensed, but she did not move from the stove. Dad, now is not a good time. Steps were heard on the stairs. Nathan came down, saw me standing in the doorway, and walked past me to kiss Lauren on the cheek. He did not even look at me, simply sat down next to Mark and grabbed the juice pitcher.
You heard him. Let us eat.
I stepped into the room, felt the change in the atmosphere, how Nathan straightened up, how Mark set down his coffee cup with a deliberate clink.
This is my house.
Every word came out precise, controlled. I bought it 30 years ago. My name is on every document. Nathan pulled out his chair and sat with exaggerated casualness. And Lauren is your daughter. What is yours is hers. What is hers is mine. That is how marriage works.
Mark laughed.
Looks like someone is upset with the new arrangements. I turned to Lauren again, forced her to look at me.
Lauren, look at me.
Tell me you think this is right.
She finally turned.
Met my eyes for an instant and then looked away. Nathan knows what is best for our family. His father needs care. Anyway, you travel. I was taking care of your aunt. Mark leaned back in his chair, my chair, and spread his hands magnanimously.
Look, boarder, we do not want trouble.
You can stay in the garage as long as you follow the house rules. Nathan's rules.
Boarder.
The word floated in the air. A tenant, a guest, someone allowed to exist on the margins of his own property.
I watched them one by one.
Nathan confident and cruel. Mark openly disdainful. Lauren unable or unwilling to defend the man who had raised her alone after her mother died, who had worked double shifts to pay for her college, who had watched her children every weekend for 5 years.
House rules in my house. Nathan smiled. Our house now.
I turned and walked back through the kitchen, crossed the door, and entered the garage. I did not slam it. I closed it carefully with precision. Like when you close something you have already decided on and do not need a dramatic gesture. The documents were still scattered on the box where I had left them. House deed, mortgage, satisfaction letter, utility bills, all in my name. I picked up my phone and searched through contacts until I found the one I needed. I had not called yet. I sat there on the overturned box, phone in one hand, looking at the papers proving ownership, and then at the house visible through the window. Laughter coming from the master bedroom was heard again.
A morning show of some kind.
Mark was enjoying his comedy.
They thought I was weak.
They believed I would accept it. They had forgotten something important about the man they had just exiled to his own garage. I built this life from scratch. I spent 40 years learning how structures work, how to identify weaknesses, how to dismantle something without it collapsing until you want it to collapse. I knew exactly how to undo what I had created. My finger hovered over the contact name.
Not yet.
First, I needed to understand everything they had done. Know every detail, every piece they had moved while I was away. Then I would start making calls. The garage felt different in the daylight. Less like an exile and more like a command center. I pulled my duffel bag from the trunk, packed clean clothes from the box with my name, toiletries. From another, all methodically in view from the window facing the kitchen. I wanted them to see me packing. The front door opened just as I put the bag in the car. Nathan came out and watched me work. He did not offer help or ask questions. He simply watched, arms relaxed at his sides, waiting to see what I would do. I closed the trunk and walked to where he was blocking the driveway. I am going to a motel. Make room for me. His expression changed, a relief barely disguised as concern. That is probably for the best. Less tension for everyone, especially for the grandkids. Yes, the grandkids. He said it as if he had forgotten they existed until I mentioned them. Lauren appeared behind him, still in her robe, although it was past 9. She followed me to the car, her slippers scuffing the driveway concrete. Dad, you understand, right? Nathan's father has health issues. I loaded the last bag without looking at her. I understand everything now.
I knew you would understand.
You are always so reasonable.
Reasonable?
The word had a bitter taste. I was reasonable for 64 years. Reasonable when her mother died and I raised her alone. Reasonable when Nathan lost his third job and I paid their mortgage for 6 months. It was reasonable that they asked to move in temporarily 5 years ago, and that temporary arrangement became permanent. I drove away, watching them in the rearview mirror. Nathan had his arm around Lauren's shoulders. Both looked relaxed, victorious. The budget motel on 82nd Avenue was not very pretty. The carpet was older than my grandchildren. The air conditioner made a horrible noise, and the parking lot needed renovation. But the weekly rate was fair, and the clerk asked no unnecessary questions when I said I would be staying a while. I spread my documents on the narrow desk in room 217. The house deed looked smaller out of the safe, less impressive on the cheap laminate than I had imagined, but the words were clear. Sole owner Robert Hayes. Purchase date, April 12, 1995. 30 years ago, I was 34. Lauren was 6. My wife was still alive. My old wallet was at the bottom of the document box. The leather was cracked and faded. I opened it more out of habit than hope. Behind an expired Costco card and a photo of Lauren at her high school graduation, I found it. The safety deposit box key, small and brass, attached to a paper tag with my account number. The Wells Fargo branch downtown still had the same marble floor I remembered from when I opened that box 20 years ago. Security protocols had been updated. More cameras, more forms. A young employee scanned my ID 3 times before taking me to the vault. Long time no see, Mr. Hayes. Is everything okay? I pulled the long metal box from its slot and felt its weight. I just need to review some documents to make sure everything is in order. It is a good idea to keep copies. You would be surprised how many people lose important documents. I do not plan on losing anything. Inside the original deed to the house with its embossed seal, the title insurance policy and the mortgage satisfaction letter from 2018. I remember that day when I made the last payment, feeling like I was finally free from the weight of 3 decades of monthly checks. I had invited Lauren and the grandkids to dinner to celebrate. Nathan did not come. He had a work obligation he could not miss. The FedEx office on Burnside had better lighting than the motel. I spread everything out on the counter. Deed, property, title, mortgage certificate. Utility bills from the last 2 years where only my name appears. Bank statements proving all payments were made exclusively from my account. That is a lot of documentation. A legal matter. The worker was young, maybe 25, with tattoos on both forearms. His name tag read, Liam, same as my grandson. A property matter. I hope it works out for you. I watched the machine produce certified copies, each page coming out crisp and bright. I'm sure it will. Back in the motel room, I brought order to the chaos. Original documents in one pile, copies in another, my handwritten notes in a third. I took out the motel notepad and created a timeline. In April 1995, bought a house for $180,000 with a 30-year mortgage. In September 2012, Lauren married Nathan. In March 2018, made the final mortgage payment, and the house was fully paid off. In January 2020, Lauren, Nathan, and their children moved temporarily into the house. In March 2025, my belongings were moved to the garage, and Mark moved into the master bedroom. The dates told a story. I had been the sole owner of the house for 7 years before Lauren moved in. The marriage predated my last payment by 6 years. Their claim lacked legal foundation. I remembered a conversation from 2 years ago. Nathan was at the kitchen table, calculator in hand and yellow pad full of numbers. With inheritance taxes, Lauren could lose 40% of the value. Better leave it in your name for now. Protection for her. At the time, I thought he was being prudent, protecting his wife. Now I saw it differently. He had been protecting himself. If the house had been in Lauren's name and they divorced, he would have claimed half. But as long as it was mine, he had to keep me happy to keep access. My laptop screen glowed under the dim motel light. I typed Oregon tenant eviction laws. The results filled several pages. I read about lease requirements, notice periods, and tenant rights. I learned about Oregon revised statutes, landlord obligations, and formal eviction procedures. I took notes in the margins of printed articles, highlighting relevant sections and building my argument step by step. They were not tenants. There was no lease agreement. No rent had ever been collected. They were occupants, family members I had allowed to stay. That changed everything. Around 6 o'clock in the evening, I created a folder from a manila envelope I found in the document box. I wrote on the tab with black marker proof of ownership. My search on the laptop changed. Real estate lawyers, eviction specialists in Portland, Oregon. 17 firms appeared. I read reviews, checked credentials, studied photos, and bios of lawyers. Most were too young, too corporate, too focused on commercial properties. Then I found Foster and Associates on the third page of results. Elaine Foster's photo showed a woman of similar age to mine, maybe in her 60s, with piercing eyes and gray hair she had not tried to hide with dye.
Her bio was concise.
30 years of experience specializing in residential real estate law, landlord-tenant disputes, and family property matters. I believe in simple solutions to complex problems. Family property matters. That phrase struck me. The office address was downtown, not far from the bank I had visited earlier. I could be there tomorrow when they opened. Walk in, present my case, and see if the photograph matched reality. I closed the laptop and set my phone alarm for 7. For the first time since returning from Seattle, since discovering my life packed in boxes, since sleeping on the floor and eating nothing, I felt sleep approaching. I lay on the motel bed, fully dressed, staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles. Outside traffic hummed on 82nd Avenue. Someone in the next room was watching TV. Voices and canned laughter filtered through the thin walls. But in my room, silence reigned. Order reigned. I had documents proving I owned something they thought they had stolen. I slept peacefully. The law firm occupied the 5th floor of a building that had probably been modern in the 80s. The elevator creaked. The hallway carpet showed signs of wear, but the door to Foster and Associates gleamed with fresh varnish. Someone cared about first impressions. The receptionist looked up from her computer as I entered.
Young, efficient, protective. Do you have an appointment, sir?
I showed her my evidence folder. No, but I need to speak with Mrs. Foster about real estate law.
It is urgent.
Her schedule is full until 2:30.
I can schedule an appointment.
I have 15 minutes before my next client. The voice came from an inner door. Elaine Foster stepped into the lobby and her photograph did not lie. She was maybe 5 feet 6 inches, wearing a navy suit that denoted competence without trying to intimidate, and her eyes scrutinized me in the time it took to cross the room.
Come in.
Her office was organized, but not impersonal. One wall was covered in law degrees for Elaine Foster, and next to them hung a certificate from the Oregon State Bar. On the credenza was a single photograph, a young woman, maybe in her 40s, smiling with the ocean in the background, probably her daughter. On the desk were stacks of neat folders, a laptop, and a coffee mug with the company logo. She pointed to a leather chair opposite her desk, sat in hers, and leaned forward slightly. Tell me the situation, just the facts.
Who owns what? Who lives where? What happened?
And when I started explaining about Lauren, how I came home and found, let us start with the property. When did you acquire it? Is anyone else on the title? Her interruption was gentle but firm. She wanted foundations, not emotions. I bought it in 1995 and paid it off in 2018. Only I have access to everything. Does your daughter live there now with her husband, her children, and now her father-in-law? They moved my things to the garage while I was caring for my sister. Elaine pulled a notepad closer and wrote quickly.
Do they pay rent?
Is there a lease agreement? No, I pay everything. Utilities, property, tax, insurance. She looked up from her notes and something changed in her expression. Still professional, but with a hint of understanding. Then you have full legal standing. It is not complicated.
But she is my daughter. People will talk.
People will think what they think. What matters is what is legal and what is right. Does that mean the same to you?
The question hung between us.
I thought about Mark, about Nathan taking my money without saying thank you, about Lauren unable to look me in the eye. They should mean the same thing. They are already here. Elaine stood up, walked to her conference table, and motioned for me to come closer.
Show me what you brought.
I spread the contents of my folder on the polished surface. She reviewed it methodically, flagging important documents with sticky notes and making notations on her pad. Her efficiency was admirable, not a wasted movement, not an unnecessary question. House deed, sole ownership, mortgage satisfaction dated 2018, utility bills for the last 24 months, all in your name, bank statement showing all payments from your account. She straightened up and crossed her arms. Mr. Hayes, this is a textbook case. They have no lease, no tenant rights, no legal right to occupy the property. Oregon law allows for no-cause eviction with proper notice. How much notice depends on how long they've lived there. More than a year, 5 years. She nodded, walked to a whiteboard on the wall, and picked up a blue marker. Here is the progression. She drew 3 squares linked by arrows. Step 130. Day no-cause eviction notice duly served. Step 2, if they do not comply, pressure the utility companies, Although this carries risks, payments can be suspended. Step 3. Formal eviction proceedings in court. How long does all that take? If they fight 2 to 3 months total. If they are smart and leave after the notice, 30 days. I watched her write Oregon Revised Statute 90.427 under the first box. The statute number meant nothing to me, but her certainty did. What if they say I'm trying to hurt my grandkids, if they make me look cruel? Elaine put down the marker and returned to her chair. When she spoke, her voice had changed, still professional, but with a strength that transcended mere legal expertise. 3 years ago, my son tried to have me declared incompetent. He wanted my law firm claimed I could no longer manage contracts or be trusted with client matters. He had a psychiatrist ready to testify and had collected statements from people I had supposedly confused in conversations. I leaned forward. What did you do? I took him to court, presented my own experts, client testimonies, and case records, proving there was no error. I won. I have not spoken to him since. Do you regret anything? Her eyes met mine, only not acting sooner. Family does not mean accepting abuse, Mr. Hayes. It means expecting better. And when they cannot meet that expectation, it means protecting yourself. Now, the photograph on her credenza made sense. It was not a son's photo, but a daughter's, the child who presumably had stood by her side. Where do we start? Elaine pulled a printed form from her desk drawer. Today I draft the eviction notice, have it notarized tomorrow, and served Monday by certified mail and through the sheriff. That starts their 30 days. You pay me a flat fee of $2,500 plus court costs if we need to file suit. After that, all communication from them must be directed to me. No conversations, explanations, or negotiations. I pulled out my checkbook. When do I pay half now? The other half when they move out. I wrote the check for $1,250 without hesitation. My hand did not shake. The figures seemed correct. A real bargain to recover what had always been mine. Elaine walked me to her office window. We stood side by side looking down at the street 5 floors below. People walked on the sidewalk with coffee cups, briefcases, shopping bags. Normal lives, normal problems. The eviction notice goes to the notary tomorrow and is served Monday. Elaine said they have 30 days from notification to vacate the premises. If they refuse, we initiate judicial eviction proceedings. This takes another 2 to 3 weeks. A bus stopped below. Some passengers got off. Others got on. The routine felt distant. They will be surprised, Elaine continued. They will probably call you angry. Do not engage. Direct all communication to me. She pulled a business card from her jacket pocket, wrote something on the back, and handed it to me, her cell number. Call anytime, even at night. Her hand lingered an instant longer than professional courtesy required when I took the card. You are doing the right thing, she said. I believed her. Lately, I had believed in almost nothing. Not Lauren's excuses, not Nathan's justifications, not my own ability to fix what was broken, but I believed Elaine Foster. What do I do until Monday? She smiled slightly the first time her expression softened since I entered her office. Do whatever you want, but do not go back to that house. Not yet. I left her building and walked to my car. The spring air smelled of imminent rain and the downtown buildings cast long shadows on the pavement. My phone vibrated. A message from Lauren. Dad, where are you? The kids want to say hi. I deleted it without replying. Elaine had said no communication. I listened to her. At the motel, I ordered Chinese delivery and spread the documents on the desk again. This time, they looked different. Not like proof of loss, but like ammunition. Proof that I was not helpless, that I was not without resources, that I was not the confused old man they had assumed would simply accept displacement. It was 3 days until Monday, 72 hours until the notice arrived, until their comfortable assumption of victory shattered. I ate dinner slowly, savoring every bite, and slept better than I had in weeks. The coffee shop near the motel smelled of burnt coffee and cleaning products. I sat at the corner table, phone propped between my hands, staring at the screen like it might explode. Paul Jenkins was due to arrive at the house at 10:30. Elaine had recommended him. He was a professional process server specializing in complex legal notices. He had told me he handled foreclosure notices, restraining orders, and bankruptcy notices. By comparison, your eviction notice will be a piece of cake. My coffee went cold. I ordered another but left it untouched. The message arrived at 10:53. Delivered to Nathan Hayes at 10:47. Signed receipt attached. Paul. I exhaled, not realizing I was holding my breath. The attachment showed Nathan's signature rushed and angular scrolled on the confirmation line. Proof of service legal documentation that the 30-day clock had started. I paid for the coffee, I did not drink, and went back to the motel. What I did not see, what Paul told me later when I called for details, was Nathan's initial reaction. He opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, annoyed by the interruption of his late breakfast. Legal notice for the occupants of this residence. Nathan glanced at the paper and then laughed.
This is a joke, right?
That old man really thinks. SS sign here, please.
Paul interrupted, holding out a pen.
Whether you consider it valid or not does not affect the legal deadline. Nathan had signed, still smiling, sure of his dismissal. Paul said he heard Nathan read the notice aloud to someone inside, voice thick with theatrical mockery, a 30-day eviction notice.
He is crazy.
That confidence lasted about 4 hours. My phone rang at 3:15.
Unknown number,
I answered cautiously. Mr. Hayes, this is Michael Brooks, a friend of Nathan Hayes. He just showed me the eviction notice you served. And it is legitimate, completely legal. I wanted to call to suggest we discuss terms before this moves forward.
There are no terms. The notice stands.
Mr. Hayes, I understand you're upset, but I hung up. Nathan arrived at the motel at 7 in the evening.
I heard him before I saw him.
Heavy footsteps on the exterior walkway. A deliberate stomp, the kind that seeks to intimidate. He pounded on my door with the side of his fist. I opened it but did not invite him in. He stood in the doorway, forced to have this conversation where other guests could hear.
Robert, come on.
Let us talk about this like adults. The dialogue is over. Your daughter, your grandkids. Would you really kick them out? I am going to enforce my property rights. You have 30 days.
His face changed.
The mask of reason fell away. If you do this, you will never see those kids again.
Never. I remained calm.
Then after May 2nd, you will never see the inside of that house again. It is your decision. My father has health issues.
You know that.
Then find him suitable housing. That is not my responsibility.
Nathan stepped closer. Do not come back.
Lauren will hate you for this. Lauren made her choice when she let you pack my things without telling me. He stared at me, looking for some weakness, finding none. Then he turned and walked away, every step deliberate on the concrete.
I closed the door.
I sat on the bed.
I waited.
The call came 90 minutes later. Lauren's name on the screen.
Dad, please.
Her voice was broken by tears. The kids are asking why Grandpa is making us leave. Lauren, I can hear Nathan giving you instructions.
Pause.
Nathan's voice in the background, almost a whisper.
Tell him about their school. Put the phone on speaker. Nathan, are you there? Shuffling sounds.
Then Nathan's voice clear and cold. We are not leaving. Force us out and see what happens to your reputation. My reputation is dedicated to myself. See you in 30 days. Someone grabbed the phone. Mark's voice came on sharp and venomous. Senile old man.
Do you think you can? I hung up mid-sentence.
The phone rang immediately.
It was Nathan's number. I did not answer. Rang again. I declined the call. Third time. Declined. A text message arrived.
You just made the biggest mistake of your life.
Deleted.
Another message from Lauren. How could you do this to your own family?
Deleted.
My phone buzzed with a notification.
Facebook.
Lauren had tagged me in a post. I opened the app, something I rarely did. There was a photo of Sophie and Oliver both looking at the camera with exaggeratedly sad expressions. The caption read, "My heart aches because my grandfather is forcing my children out of their home. Please pray for me."
Already 3 comments.
I'm so sorry, Lauren. Praying for you and the babies. Families should support each other, not tear apart. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling. I knew this would happen. Elaine had warned me, but seeing it reading strangers, judging with only half the story hurt more than I had anticipated. My phone rang again. This time it was Elaine's name. I answered, "Did you see Lauren's post?" Elaine's voice came through clear, concerned, but not alarmed. Background noise suggested she was still in her office despite the hour. Just now, this is standard procedure. Make the other side look like the villain. Do not engage. I sat up in bed. People I have known for years are commenting, calling me heartless. They do not know the whole story. You cannot win a trial on social media. Robert, stay silent. How long will this last until they realize it does not work? Or until the 30 days are up, whichever comes first?
She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing it did not make it easier. The next morning, I checked Facebook despite my reservations. Lauren's post had gone viral overnight. Now it had 17 comments. Former colleagues from the architecture firm where I worked for 30 years. Neighbors from the street where I have lived since Lauren was 6. Mrs. Henderson who lives 3 houses down. This breaks my heart. Poor babies. A new post appeared while I was looking. A photo of Mark sitting in an armchair looking frail and worried. Lauren's caption facing homelessness at 65 with severe health issues. Where is the compassion? I closed the app and threw the phone on the bed. Wednesday morning, the motel front desk called my room. Mr. Hayes, there is a certified letter for you. The envelope was from Gregory Lane, attorney at law. The return address was a strip mall on 22nd Avenue. I opened it in the parking lot. Dear Mr. Hayes, I represent Nathan Hayes, Lauren Hayes, Mark Hayes, and minors Sophie and Oliver Hayes. Your attempt to evict my clients constitutes abuse against Mr. Mark Hayes and endangers the welfare of minors by creating housing instability. I read it twice. The accusations were baseless. I knew that even without legal training, but the words hit me anyway. Elder abuse, child endangerment, constructive eviction. The letter made me sound like a monster. I called Elaine from the car. It is pure posturing, she said after I read her the relevant parts. Lane is a small-time lawyer trying to intimidate you into backing down. The notice stands. But what if there is no room for doubt? The law is the law. Everything else is gossip. I wanted to believe her. I tried to cling to her certainty. Thursday afternoon, I needed to buy food, basics, bread, milk, coffee, the kind of shopping you cannot avoid, even when you would rather hide in a motel room. The Fred Meyer on 82nd Street was crowded for a weekday. I grabbed a cart and went to produce. I picked apples and headed for the dairy section. Robert. Mrs. Henderson was near the bananas, her cart half full. We had been neighbors for 20 years. She brought casseroles after my wife passed. She watched Sophie and Oliver occasionally when Lauren needed help. Hello, Sarah. She looked at me in a way I had never seen before. Cold. What a disappointment. I saw what Lauren posted. Poor kids. There is more to this situation than I never thought you would be that kind of grandfather. I just never imagined it. They moved into my house and she was already walking away, shaking her head. There's always another way. Always. I stood there, hand on the cart handle, surrounded by people buying vegetables and going about their normal Thursday afternoon lives. I left the cart in the aisle and walked out. Back at the motel, Elaine's message awaited me. We need to talk. Not about the case. About you. Coffee tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time. Reply, I am not sure it is necessary. Her reply was immediate. Yes. 1 o'clock. The cafe on Hawthorne near 35th Street. Please. I accepted because I did not have the strength to refuse. The cafe was quiet, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. Elaine was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. I already ordered yours. Black, right? How did you know? You strike me as a person who does not complicate life unnecessarily. We sat in silence for a moment. I took a sip of coffee. It was good. Better than the motel or the hotel chain I used to frequent. Maybe everyone is right, I said finally. Maybe I am being cruel. Elaine set her cup down carefully. Tell me something. When your daughter let her husband pack your things, was that a kind gesture? No. But when they gave your room to his father without asking, was that a respectful gesture? No. Then why do you question yourself? I had no answer. Elaine leaned back and watched me for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had a different tone. 3 years ago, my son brought a psychiatrist to my office. He said I was showing symptoms of dementia and wanted to evaluate my mental capacity. I looked up. Your own son? He needed me incompetent to take over my practice. He had already spoken to 3 of my partners about a seamless transition once I was declared unfit. What did you do? I fought. I hired my own experts. Submitted my files. Proved my competence before a judge. I won. She paused. I lost him. But I kept my dignity and my business. Do you have regrets? I regret that he forced me to choose. But I do not regret choosing myself. The cafe was warm even though it had started raining outside. A young couple sat near the window laughing over a phone. Life went on as normal around us. And if I lose them all? I asked quietly. Elaine reached across the table. Her hand covered mine warm and firm.
Then you find new people, better people, people who do not mistake your kindness for weakness. I looked at our hands. I had not held a woman's hand in years. Not since my wife passed 12 years ago. This was not the same as simple comfort. It was like a partnership, as if someone was standing beside me instead of watching from a distance. They are counting on your weakness, Robert. Counting on you giving in for peace.
But that is not peace.
That is surrender, and you will spend the rest of your life living in a garage, wondering why you let them win. The rain drummed harder against the window. Neither of us moved our hands. The notice stands, I said finally. It was not a question. The notice stands, Elaine confirmed. Her hand stayed where it was. I turned mine, letting our fingers interlace properly. We sat like that while it rained and the coffee went cold. And for the first time since that encounter at the supermarket, I felt less alone. Outside the world might be judging me. On the internet, strangers might label me heartless. But here in this quiet cafe with this woman who understood betrayal, as only one who had lived it, could I felt something I had not felt in weeks.
I felt certainty.
Elaine spread the utility bills on the conference table like a dealer showing her cards. Electricity, water, cable, internet. My name was on the header of every account. They are living in your house at your expense, she said, tapping the cable bill with her pen.
It is time to cut the payment.
We were 2 weeks into the 30-day notice period. Lauren's Facebook posts continued photos of the kids doing homework at the kitchen table. Messages about persevering in the face of a family crisis. Nathan had not responded to my calls or messages since the eviction was served. They were dug in treating the eviction as a mere threat. The notice expires in 2 weeks, Elaine continued.
Are they still there?
Lauren posted yesterday about standing firm against injustice. They are not leaving. Elaine leaned back in her chair and watched me. Then we increased the pressure. Cable, internet, reduce their expenses.
All legal.
You are the account holder and are preparing to sell. Companies do not care about family drama.
How long does it take?
Cable disconnection takes 48 hours. Reducing the electric bill takes about a week to process the paperwork. She opened something on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. You cannot cut electricity completely. Safety regulations, but you can request a reduction to minimum service. Enough for the refrigerator and basic lighting. Nothing for entertainment or comfort. I thought about Nathan and Mark watching sports in my room, the kids watching cartoons on their tablets, Lauren running the dryer 3 times a day because she never learned to organize laundry.
Well, do it, I said.
Back at the motel, I called the cable company first. I put them on speaker so I could take notes. Old habit from architecture meetings where every detail mattered. May I ask the reason for disconnection, change of residence? I no longer live there. Will anyone else be taking over the account number?
Total disconnection.
I can process it in 48 hours. You will receive a confirmation email shortly. The electric company was more complicated. The representative questioned my request for minimum service. They suggested I simply transfer the account to the current occupants. I explained that the property is in dispute and will be reduced to the legal minimum until resolved. The legal minimum required a refrigerator, a stove, and 1 lamp per room. No heating allowed beyond what was necessary for pipes. No air conditioning allowed. No entertainment systems. The confirmation email arrived that evening. Service reduction effective in 5 business days. I photographed everything. Confirmation emails, receipts of service changes. I created a spreadsheet with dates, times, and account numbers. My architect's precision applied to legal warfare.
Elaine called that night. How did it go? Cable cut Friday.
Power goes down next Wednesday.
Good.
Now we prepare the next phase.
She paused.
Have you thought about listing the house for sale?
Maybe. Maybe not.
But preparing the listing, getting photos, and drafting MLS documents sends a message. It shows you are serious. We met a real estate photographer on Saturday. He took exterior shots while I waited in the car, not wanting to risk running into the family. The house looked beautiful in the afternoon light. The garden I had tended for 30 years. The new gutters I installed 2 summers ago, the painted frames Lauren once praised.
When do you want this published?
The photographer asked, showing us images on his laptop.
I looked at Elaine. She nodded slightly. Not yet, I said.
I will let you know in 10 days. The internet went down Friday afternoon. Nathan called an hour later, voice tight with rage. What did you do?
The internet is gone.
I disconnected services at my property. You cannot just the kids need internet for school. You have 13 days to find a new residence with internet. I suggest you start looking. This is illegal. I'm going to cut the utilities. Consult your lawyer. I am the account holder. I can modify or cancel any service I'm paying for. He hung up without another word. Lauren called that evening. I heard the kids crying in the background. Their voices were high and panicky like when routine breaks. Dad, please. The kids cannot do their homework. The power supply is at safety minimum. The refrigerator works. Basic lighting works. For anything else, you need to open your own account. We cannot afford it. Then perhaps you should consider that the housing I provided was not as onerous as Nathan made it seem. Silence, then quietly. Mom would be ashamed of you. The words hit me heavy in my chest. I expected them prepared for them, but hearing them still hurt. Your mother taught you better than this, Lauren. She would be ashamed of how you treated me. I hung up before she could respond. 2 days later, Elaine and I were at the photographer's studio reviewing house photos. He did an excellent job. Professional staging, perfect lighting. The property looked worth $20,000 more than market value. Send this to Nathan, Elaine suggested. No words, just the photos. I hesitated only an instant. I pulled out my phone, selected the 12 images, forwarded them to Nathan's number. 3 dots appeared instantly. Nathan was typing. Then they stopped. Started again. Stopped again. No message arrived. Elaine's hand found mine on the desk. Her fingers were warm. Relax. He knows now, she said softly. He knows you will really do it. We stared at my phone screen, waiting for a reply that never came. The silence felt louder than any of Nathan's threats. Outside the window, Portland went about its routine. It is Tuesday afternoon. Cars pass. People walked their dogs. Life went on while I dismantled mine piece by careful piece. But Elaine's hand stayed where it was, and that gave me a more solid feeling than anything I had lost. Elaine closed her office door, something she had never done before. Usually, we left it open during meetings. Professional courtesy, nothing to hide. She sat next to me on the leather sofa instead of across the desk. I have a practical solution to discuss. Her tone was cautious, calm. She knew I would resist. About the case, about where you were living. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos of a small house. Cream siding, red front door, garden with late blooming tulips. I have a rental property, Selwood area. The current tenant moved out last month. That is nice, but I can manage the motel. Robert, I have been to that motel. It smells like disinfectant and sadness. The house is empty. Use it. I cannot accept that. This is not charity. It is practical. She looked me straight in the eye. I cannot have my client depressed when he needs to be sharp. The house was 15 minutes from her office, tucked away on a quiet street where maple trees met to form a canopy. Elaine unlocked the front door and I stepped into sunlight. Authentic warm light pouring through windows without thick curtains blocking parking lot lights. 2 bedrooms, renovated kitchen with white subway tiles, hardwood floors that creaked pleasantly underfoot. A back door led to a small garden with raised beds ready for planting. I stood in the living room, feeling my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks. This is too much, Elaine. It is a house. Empty houses deteriorate. You would actually be helping me by keeping it occupied. I will insist on paying rent. Agreed. Pay me when you sell your house and this nightmare is over. Until then, consider it case expenses. I almost smiled. That is not how case expenses work. I am the lawyer. I decide how they work. We loaded my belongings at the motel. 2 suitcases, a box of documents, my laptop, backpack. Everything I owned fit in her trunk. She would not let me use my own vehicle, mentioning something about papers I needed to sign at the bungalow. Unpacking took 20 minutes. Elaine knew where everything should go without asking. Clothes in the bedroom closet, toiletries in the bathroom, documents in the second bedroom, which could serve as an office. She moved around the room like she had planned it, like she had imagined me living there before offering it. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator. Milk, eggs, bread, fresh vegetables, pasta, marinara sauce. Did you have everything? I stared at the shelves. I had a feeling you would eventually say yes. Sure of yourself, huh? Practical. I am always practical. I took out the pasta, examined the label as if it held answers. Is that what this is, practical? She did not answer immediately, opened a cupboard, and found a pot without searching. What else could it be? We cooked together in that small kitchen. She boiled water while I chopped vegetables. We bumped into each other, reaching for olive oil. Laughed when she dropped a spoon, and I caught it before it hit the floor. Easy, natural, like we had done it before in some other life. Sunlight streamed through the window over the sink. I caught her profile as she stirred the sauce. Gray hair, reading glasses perched slightly up on her head. The slight smile she wore when concentrating. I realized I was happy. Genuinely happy. Not just content or distracted or coping. Truly happy. When was the last time I felt that? Do you read architectural history? She found my books while unpacking and held up a volume on Victorian design. I used to design buildings. Liked understanding what came before. Past tense. I do not design anymore. Retired 5 years ago. Thought I would have time for other things like getting shoved into a garage. I laughed despite myself. That was not in the retirement plan. We ate at the small dining table. The pasta was simple. Perfect. Elaine asked about my career, about buildings I had designed. I asked about her daughter in Boston, what she did. Were they close? When was the last time someone cooked dinner for you? I asked. I usually cook for myself. That is not what I asked. She pondered, fork halfway to her mouth. My daughter maybe 2 years ago before she moved to Boston. You must miss her every day, but she has her life. I have mine. Does it get easier? The distance from family. Elaine put down her fork. Looked at me across the table. You learn to fill the void differently. My phone vibrated. I ignored it. Vibrated again. Lauren's name on the screen. I picked it up. Read the text aloud. Mark and Nathan had a huge fight. The kids are scared. Please reconsider. Elaine read it over my shoulder, said nothing. Just squeezed my hand where it rested on the table. We washed dishes together. She scrubbed. I dried. The window over the sink overlooked the garden. Twilight dyed the beds purple. I could plant tomatoes there. Maybe herbs. The idea seemed radical after weeks of motel rooms and garage exile. At the front door, Elaine grabbed her purse. I held out her keys. Thank you, I said. For everything, the house, the case, you. I did not know how to finish. She adjusted her coat, not looking me directly in the eye. Would you do the same? Would I? She looked at me then. I think so. I think you are a person who helps others. That is why this situation hurts so much. You were always the giver and they just took. Something shifted in the space between us. I reached out, touched her gently on the arm. Stay a while longer, keys in hand. She looked at them, then at me. I should stay. It is not a demand, just asking. Elaine left the keys on the hall table. Maybe one more cup of coffee, she said softly. We went back to the kitchen. I started the coffee maker while she leaned against the counter, watching me with an expression I could not decipher. The house settled around us. The creak of floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a dog 3 houses down, normal sounds, home sounds. Elaine accepted the coffee cup I offered, our fingers brushing instantly. Neither pulled away. Robert, she said, and stopped. I know, I replied. We stood there in the kitchen of a house that was not mine, drinking coffee that was too hot, not saying what we both understood. Outside, darkness was complete. Inside, something new was beginning. 3 months had passed since Elaine offered me the bungalow. 3 months of legal paperwork, depositions, and delays. The May deadline came and went, and Nathan refused to budge, forcing us into formal eviction proceedings. By mid-August, we stood in the Multnomah County Courthouse hallway, waiting for our case to be called. Elaine wore a charcoal suit, reading glasses in her jacket pocket, and a leather briefcase that looked packed with evidence. I had spent the previous night at the bungalow, organizing documents, preparing questions, and reviewing Nathan's potential testimony. Professional, focused. My lawyer again, although we both knew she was much more than that now. The bailiff called Hayes. We headed toward the courtroom doors. Lauren rounded the corner with Sophie and Oliver, 2 kids taller than I remembered. Sophie wore a purple dress. Oliver had a backpack with dinosaurs. Our eyes met across the hall. Oliver pulled on Lauren's hand. Mom, who is that man? Lauren's face tightened slightly. No one, honey. That hurt more than Nathan's threats. To my grandson, I was no one. 3 months of separation had erased me from my life. I gripped the folder Elaine had given me. She touched my elbow gently. Let us go. The courtroom was smaller than it looks on TV. Judge Elena Vargas presided, a woman in her 50s with a piercing gaze and no patience for theatrics. Elaine had taught me that, having researched every judge on rotation. Gregory Lane sat at the defense table, his suit ill-fitting and his presentation disorganized. Nathan beside him looked confident. Mark had not arrived yet. We took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Elaine arranged her materials with precision. Lane stood for opening statements. Your Honor, my clients are victims of retaliatory eviction perpetrated by a bitter and vindictive man who cut off basic utilities to exclude his own daughter and grandchildren. Judge Vargas looked up from her notes. Mr. Lane, this is a property dispute, not a family matter. Focus on legal standing, but the emotional context. The legal context, counselor, who owns the property? Lane fumbled through his papers. Well, technically the plaintiff, but moving on from there. Elaine stood slowly and placed a single document on the projector. The original 1995 house deed, my name engraved on the title. She let it speak for itself before she did. Your Honor, the facts are clear. Mr. Hayes is the sole owner of the property in question. He purchased it 30 years ago and paid off the mortgage in 2018. In March 2025, upon returning from caring for his sick sister, he found his belongings stored in the garage of his room occupied by Mr. Nathan Hayes' father without his permission or prior notice.
She clicked through slides.
Each was irrefutable proof in Nathan's case, bank statements showing 30 years of payments, utility bills from the last 2 years, all in my name. The eviction notice, duly notarized, was served on April 15. Photos of my belongings packed in the garage with date and timestamps to prove it. And the family's response to the eviction notice, asked Judge Vargas. They ignored it completely and filed this frivolous counterclaim alleging constructive eviction.
The judge arched an eyebrow.
After constructively evicting him from his own room, Lane called Nathan to testify. My son-in-law approached confidently and settled into the stand as if his presence were doing everyone a favor. Lane asked soft questions about family relationships and cohabitation. Nathan explained that I had invited them to stay, that the idea was for it to be permanent, and that cutting their utilities had been deliberate cruelty. Then Elaine stood for cross-examination. Mr. Hayes, how much rent did you pay Mr. Hayes monthly?
We had a family agreement. Yes or no? Paid rent. Nathan clenched his jaw. No.
But when you moved your father into Mr. Hayes' room, did you ask for permission?
He was in Seattle.
We needed to. Permission, yes or no?
No.
When you stored Mr. Hayes' belongings in the garage, did you notify him beforehand?
Long pause.
Nathan looked at Lane but found no solution there.
No.
Elaine presented manila folders in sequence like dealing cards. Paul Jenkins notarized affidavit regarding Nathan's initial mockery upon receiving notice. Phone records showing Nathan's threatening calls after notice. Email confirmations of utility disconnects. All requested by the account holder, me. I was called to testify. Elaine's questions were gentle but devastating in their simplicity. Mr. Hayes, when you returned from Seattle, where did you sleep the first night? In my garage, on the concrete floor in the house you had owned for 30 years.
Yes. Did anyone apologize? No.
My son-in-law told me those were the new rules. The courtroom was silent, save for the stenographer's typing. Judge Vargas reviewed the documents Elaine had presented calmly. Nathan whispered something urgent to Lane. Lauren sat in the gallery, weeping silently into a tissue.
The judge looked up.
This court finds absolutely no merit in the constructive eviction claim. Mr. Hayes is the sole owner. The defendants are illegal occupants without lease or payment who denied the owner access to his own home.
The original eviction notice stands.
The defendants must vacate within 7 days and pay the plaintiff $8,500 in court costs plus $5,000 in damages. Mark burst into the courtroom late as usual. He caught the end of the sentence. This is outrageous. We have nowhere to go. Mr. Hayes' father, sit down or I will hold you in contempt.
Bailiff, please.
Mark instead stormed toward the exit. This whole system is corrupt. The bailiff tried to stop him, but the judge waved him off.
Let him go. The ruling stands. Nathan stood stunned.
Lane gathered his papers. Defeat was reflected on his face. Lauren stood, took her children's hands, and walked to the doors without looking at me. Outside on the courthouse steps, Elaine finished a call with her office while I watched Nathan help Mark into the car. The old man was still ranting and gesturing wildly.
Nathan looked beaten, defeated.
Lauren buckled the crying children into the back seat.
She glanced back once and saw me standing there. For an instant, we were father and daughter again. Before Nathan, before the house,
before everything fell apart. Then Nathan called her name sharply, and she got in the car. They drove off. Elaine joined me and took my arm. You won. I did not feel like I had one. I know what you were thinking, she continued softly. Winning in court is not the same as winning in life, I nodded. But sometimes protecting yourself is the only victory that matters. You will have time to rebuild other things. She did not say, let us rebuild together, but it was there implied in the way her hand rested on my arm. We walked together to her car. The courthouse clock read 3:15. In 7 days, the house would be mine again, completely mine. The keys still work. I never changed the locks. It had not been necessary. The house had always been mine, legally, if not physically. I stood in the entryway, breathing air that smelled different, stale, like windows closed for too long. Elaine parked behind me in the driveway, her car loaded with boxes from the bungalow. My belongings finally back home. The living room was empty, not just of people but of everything. The family photos that hung on the walls were gone. Lauren's decorative pillows, the kids' toys scattered in corners. Nathan's sports memorabilia on the mantel, all gone. The space felt empty but intact. They had taken what they could, but left no destruction in their wake. I walked through every room methodically. In the master bedroom, only the furniture I had bought 30 years ago remained rescued from the garage where they had cornered it. The children's rooms were completely empty. Not even a forgotten crayon on the floor. No trace of Mark anywhere. In the kitchen, a yellow sticky note on the counter caught my eye. The handwriting was Lauren's, rushed but legible. Dad, I know this fixes nothing, but I need to tell you I was wrong. Nathan pushed and I let him. And I forgot who raised me and what you taught me about standing up for what is right. I am sorry. I prioritized his comfort over your dignity. The kids ask about you. I tell them Grandpa loves them very much. I hope someday you will forgive me. Your daughter always, Lauren. I read it twice, folded it carefully, and put it in my wallet. Elaine walked in the front door with the box labeled Robert's books written in her familiar handwriting from 4 months ago. She set it down and looked around the empty room. It is strange, I said. I fought so hard to get back here, and now it feels empty, sad, like I won the house but lost the life that was in it. She came to stand beside me. The life that was in it pushed you into a garage. Now you will have a better life. We unpacked together. Books went back on shelves. My framed photographs, my parents, my wife Lauren as a child back on the mantel. Every object placed was an act of recovery, rebuilding identity bit by bit. Elaine found the architecture book in a box. Pacific Northwest Architecture. She opened the cover and saw the inscription for Dad, who taught me to see the structure of buildings. Love, Lauren. 10 years ago, I said it was her birthday gift to me. She was thoughtful once. She was. I do not know when that changed. Elaine closed the book gently. People do not change. Circumstances reveal who they really were. You just did not want to see it. Night came as we worked. The house transformed slowly, not returning to what it was, but becoming something new. Elaine found ingredients she had brought from the bungalow and started pulling out pots and pans. Now what, she asked, filling a pot with water. You have your house back. Cases are closed. You do not need a lawyer anymore. I took the pot from her and put it on the stove. Is that what you were, my lawyer? For a while, then something else. Something else sounds better. Much better. We cooked pasta, the same meal we had prepared together twice before. Once at her bungalow and once in this kitchen months ago when I thought life would always include Lauren and the grandkids. The ritual felt right, claiming the space together, writing new memories over old ones. After dinner, we took our wine glasses to the back deck. The Adirondack chairs I had built 20 years ago were waiting for us. We settled in as the summer evening faded into night. I learned something from all this, I said. What is it? That boundless kindness is nothing more than weakness. That I deserve respect in my own life. That losing people who do not value you is not really a loss. Elaine set her glass on the deck railing. And what did you gain? I looked at her gray hair, catching the last rays of sun, comfortable in my space like she belonged there. Clarity, strength. I was already here. I know. That is the best part. Stars appeared one by one. Somewhere in the neighborhood, wind chimes rang. The house stood silent behind us, empty, but no longer lonely. I should probably go, Elaine said, but she did not move. You can stay, I kept my tone casual. I have a spare room, she laughed softly. A spare room? I am old-fashioned. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence. Elaine reached across the gap between the chairs and found my hand. Tomorrow, she said we could start hanging pictures on the walls. Make it feel like yours again. Ours, I corrected gently. Elaine squeezed my hand. She did not protest. In the kitchen, Lauren's note was folded in my wallet. Someday I might call her. Someday she might answer. We might rebuild something smaller but more honest than what we had before. But tonight, this moment, this fragment, this was enough. The house was mine again. Elaine's hand was warm and mine. Stars kept appearing, filling the dark sky with light. I had lost a daughter, at least for now. I had lost grandchildren who did not recognize me. I lost the family I thought I had. But I found myself again. I set boundaries. I found someone who recognized my worth and supported me through the hardest moments of reclaiming it. The evening breeze was cool and pleasant. Our Elaine's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Neither of us spoke. We did not need to. This was everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.